On the afternoon of the 13th of July, 2022, the lives of three individuals collided in a storm of passion, betrayal, and revenge. In New York, 28-year-old nail technician Sakiyna Thompson booked a last-minute flight to Florida. She wasn't going on vacation, she was on a mission. Driven by rage and heartbreak, Sakiyna was determined to confront and eliminate the woman she believed had stolen her boyfriend. That woman was 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson, a vibrant and ambitious flight attendant who had unknowingly stepped into a dangerous love triangle. Just hours after Sakiyna's flight, at precisely 3 p.m., the Broward Sheriff's Office would receive a chilling 911 call that led them to a horrific crime scene in the quiet suburb of Tamarack, Florida. The second floor of the Tamarack Village Apartments held a grim sight. Kayla's lifeless body lay in her home, a gruesome gash on her neck. It was a brutal end for a woman who had once dreamed of traveling the world. The murder shocked the community and sparked a complex investigation with roots deeper than anyone initially realized. Kayla Hodgson was more than a victim. She was known for her electric smile, relentless work ethic, and infectious energy. A flight attendant by day and a bartender by night, she seamlessly juggled both jobs, lighting up every room she entered. To her colleagues and friends, she was the soul of every party, the kind of person who lifted others simply by being herself. Her dreams were large, just like her heart. At only 23, she longed to see the world, experience new cultures, and build a fulfilling life. Kayla had recently returned from a trip to Miami, where she met a man named Terry. Their encounter, filled with laughter and adventure, seemed like the start of something magical. Unaware of the complications that lay ahead, Kayla opened her heart to Terry. The connection felt natural and exciting. What she didn't know was that this budding romance would become the catalyst for her tragic fate, sealed by lies, secrecy, and jealousy. Terry presented himself as charming and available, weaving a web of romance that drew Kayla in. He told her the things every woman wants to hear, words that made her feel seen and special. She believed she had found someone worth exploring a future with, someone who made her heart race. But Terry had a dark secret. Back home in New York, he was already in a serious, highly publicized relationship with Sakiyna Thompson. Their relationship, though volatile, was passionate and deeply rooted. On social media, Sakiyna often posted pictures and videos of their life together: lavish dinners, gifts, affectionate selfies. It painted a picture of an inseparable couple. The truth was far messier. Behind the glamour was a toxic bond marked by arguments and emotional turmoil. Despite their frequent breakups, Sakiyna always believed Terry was hers and hers alone. She had no idea that during their Miami vacation trip they had planned together, Terry would betray her so brazenly with another woman. When Sakiyna discovered Terry's infidelity, something inside her broke. Betrayal was an emotion she refused to tolerate. For someone like her, confident, outspoken, and fiercely possessive, Terry's actions were more than disrespectful. They were unforgivable. Kayla, the other woman, became the target of her fury. Sakiyna began stalking Terry's every move. She secretly placed a GPS tracker on his white Range Rover, monitoring his routines, locations, and ultimately, the address of the woman he was seeing. Her plan was not impulsive, it was methodical and calculated. She wanted Kayla gone, permanently. Fueled by a deadly cocktail of love, rage, and wounded pride, Sakiyna set her plan into motion. She knew where to find her, and she knew exactly when Terry wouldn't be there. What happened next was both deliberate and shocking, leaving an entire community in mourning and disbelief. Back in Florida, Kayla and Terry spent time together inside her apartment, unaware of the storm heading their way. After Terry left that afternoon, Sakiyna made her move. She entered the apartment complex and walked straight to Kayla's unit. The confrontation began with yelling and escalated quickly into physical violence. A disturbing video would later surface, showing Sakiyna wielding a shoe, trying to force her way into Kayla's apartment as the younger woman tried to shut the door. The video captured the chaos of the moment, but not the worst of it. What happened after the camera stopped recording was unspeakable. Sakiyna reportedly used a heavy, blunt object to beat Kayla, then viciously slashed her throat from ear to ear. The sheer brutality of the act shocked even seasoned officers. At 3 p.m., the 911 call came in. A neighbor had witnessed something horrific. When police arrived, they found Kayla dead, her blood soaking the floor of her home. Word of the murder spread quickly through the Tamarack community. Residents who had lived peacefully for years were stunned by the violent crime in their midst. Some had seen the emergency vehicles and flashing lights but didn't know what had happened until news reports confirmed the truth. Kayla's family was devastated. They had no warning, no time to prepare for the tragic loss. Her friends and co-workers were left in disbelief. How could someone so full of life be taken in such a gruesome way? Vigils were held, candles lit, and balloons released in her memory. But even amid the mourning, the most pressing question loomed large: who had done this, and why? Police had no immediate suspects, and despite the brutality of the murder, the killer had vanished without a trace. The white Range Rover outside the apartment offered a clue, but the mystery was far from solved. Detectives launched a full-scale investigation into the murder. They collected evidence from the scene, reviewed surveillance footage, and interviewed neighbors. The presence of the Range Rover raised suspicion. It was traced to Terry, and soon investigators started piecing together the tangled love triangle. Still, they had no clear evidence linking Sakiyna to the crime. She had already returned to New York, blending back into her everyday life as if nothing had happened. But detectives were closing in. They followed digital breadcrumbs, text messages, social media activity, and GPS data. Eventually, the pieces came together. Investigators discovered the tracking device Sakiyna had used to follow Terry's movements. It led them directly to Kayla's apartment. It was only a matter of time before they identified Sakiyna Thompson as the prime suspect in the vicious killing. As detectives gathered more evidence, the narrative of what happened on the 13th of July grew clearer. The GPS tracker on Terry's vehicle had been purchased by Sakiyna, who used it to discover Kayla's address. That one device connected Sakiyna to the crime scene and to Kayla's final moments. Further investigation revealed that Sakiyna had flown to Florida the day of the murder and returned to New York the same evening. Flight records confirmed her travel timeline. The brutal nature of Kayla's wounds also suggested a deeply personal motive. This wasn't random, nor was it a robbery gone wrong. What stunned investigators most was that Sakiyna allegedly reunited with Terry after the murder and flew back home with him. It seemed unfathomable that a person could commit such a heinous act and return to normalcy within hours. But as more evidence piled up, so did the case against her. In the days following Kayla's murder, her name echoed through South Florida. Vigils were organized in her memory. Friends shared tearful tributes, and co-workers mourned the loss of someone who made every shift brighter. Kayla's death had touched countless lives. People flooded her Instagram with messages of shock and sorrow. Posts once filled with smiles and travel photos became memorials of what could have been. Friends remembered her as the life of the party, a person with an unshakable work ethic and a heart that welcomed everyone. Her family, reeling from the sudden tragedy, set up a GoFundMe campaign to cover funeral costs. The response was overwhelming. Over $115,000 poured in from strangers, friends, and community members who felt the weight of her loss. But no amount of money could ease the heartbreak. For nearly 2 weeks, the investigation pressed on without an arrest. Rumors swirled online. Some speculated it was a crime of passion. Others thought it might be random. Then, on the 25th of July, 2022, police made their move. An arrest warrant was issued for Sakiyna Thompson. Detectives had finally built a timeline airtight enough to pursue charges. The surveillance footage, the tracking device, Sakiyna's flight logs, and witness testimonies all pointed to one chilling conclusion. Sakiyna had planned and executed the murder of Kayla Hodgson. Law enforcement agencies began coordinating with police in New York, where Sakiyna had returned. The warrant specified that she acted with premeditation and a depraved mind, language that suggested prosecutors were preparing to pursue a first-degree murder charge. On the 3rd of August, 2022, police in Springfield Gardens, New York, arrested Sakiyna Thompson without incident. She was held without bond and would soon be extradited back to Florida to face the charges. The arrest brought relief to Kayla's grieving loved ones and renewed focus on the tragedy. Local news stations reported the arrest widely, with reporters stationed outside the same Tamarack apartment where Kayla had lived and died. The community breathed a sigh of relief. At least now, someone would be held accountable. Sakiyna's social media accounts were flooded with angry comments. The bold, defiant posts she had once made now stood in stark contrast to the reality she faced, accused of murder, incarcerated, and awaiting trial for a crime that shocked the nation. In Florida, prosecutors took the case to a grand jury, which returned an indictment for first-degree murder. The language of the indictment was stark. Sakiyna had acted with the intent to kill and with total disregard for human life. It was a strong signal that the state would seek the harshest punishment available. The indictment also laid out the timeline. Sakiyna tracked her boyfriend, followed him across state lines, waited for him to leave, and then attacked Kayla in cold blood. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment altercation. It was a planned, calculated execution. This legal step was crucial. It ensured that Sakiyna would be held without bond and gave the prosecution a strong foundation to move toward trial. But as the legal process began, another shocking revelation came to light, one that would further complicate the case. Not long after her arrest, Sakiyna revealed she was pregnant. The announcement sent waves through the public and raised serious questions about how the justice system would handle her incarceration. Some speculated it could lead to leniency or special accommodations. In a letter to the presiding judge, Sakiyna pleaded for compassion, citing the safety of her unborn child. She described fears about giving birth in custody and the potential trauma her child would endure, but her plea fell on deaf ears. The court denied her request for release, ruling that her pregnancy did not outweigh the severity of her alleged crime. The decision signaled the justice system's intent to treat her case as a serious, premeditated act of violence, one softened by personal circumstances. On the 17th of February, 2023, while still incarcerated, Sakiyna gave birth. The child was placed in the custody of Terry, the very man at the center of the love triangle that had ended in bloodshed. The irony was impossible to ignore. Though Sakiyna now had a child in the world, it did not change the fact that she faced a potential life sentence. The baby, who is innocent in all of this, would grow up with a mother behind bars and a father entangled in a tragic past. The birth raised new questions. Would this child's existence alter the outcome of Sakiyna's sentencing? Could the child someday become a symbol of both justice and tragedy, reminder of what had been lost? With Sakiyna back in Florida, the case proceeded through the pre-trial process. Defense attorneys explored possible strategies, but the evidence was overwhelming. GPS data, video footage, travel records, and witness statements formed a near unbreakable wall of proof. The prosecution prepared to present the case as one of deliberate murder, an act driven by jealousy and rage, not a momentary lapse in judgment. They emphasized the brutality of the attack, the beating, the slashing of Kayla's throat, and the calm escape afterward. Kayla's loved ones, meanwhile, braced for a long road to justice. They showed up at court hearings, wore shirts with her face, and vowed to see the case through until the end. For them, it was about more than punishment. It was about closure. As news of the trial spread, outrage grew. Vigils turned into protests. Online communities rallied around Kayla's name. Strangers shared her story as a cautionary tale about domestic violence, betrayal, and unchecked obsession. Journalists covered every legal development. Talk shows discussed the case. Social media influencers demanded harsher penalties for relationship-related murders. Kayla became a symbol, a young woman whose light was stolen too soon, whose death could not be allowed to fade quietly. Kayla's story resonated because it could have been anyone's. A simple romance, a fun trip, and the wrong person in the background. It was a chilling reminder that danger often hides in plain sight. In the wake of her death, those who loved Kayla made it their mission to ensure she would never be forgotten. Friends created photo montages, shared her playlists, and raised money for causes she cared about. Her family hosted events in her memory. They started foundations for young women pursuing careers in aviation and hospitality, honoring her dream of flying and her life as a bartender. At these events, Kayla's laughter echoed through stories, her light living on in memories and tributes. Kayla's legacy became one of love and light, even in the shadow of a violent end. Her life, though short, became a reminder to cherish every day, speak out about toxic relationships, and never underestimate the weight of jealousy. Terry, the man caught between the two women, remained largely silent in public. He never gave a statement about what happened or the role he may have played intentionally or unintentionally in igniting the deadly chain of events. Some saw him as a grieving partner, caught in a nightmare. Others blamed him, believing that his deception had cost Kayla her life. His silence only fueled the debate, leaving many questions unanswered. Whether he felt guilt, fear, or shame, the truth was clear. 2 lives had been destroyed, and a third, their child, was left to grow up in the aftermath. As of now, Sakiyna awaits trial. Delays due to legal filings, witness coordination, and the complexities of a high-profile case have stretched the timeline. But prosecutors remain committed to seeking a conviction and delivering justice for Kayla. Kayla's family continues to attend hearings, even when nothing happens. They say showing up is their way of honoring her, ensuring that her killer sees the faces of those left behind. They refuse to let Kayla become just another statistic. Every delay is painful, every memory a wound reopened. But they wait. They wait because Kayla deserves that. She deserves justice. She deserves peace. Though Sakiyna has been charged and the facts have been laid bare, the story hasn't ended. The courtroom battle will unfold in time, and with it, the final judgment. But for those who knew Kayla, no verdict will bring her back. The balloon releases, the candlelight vigils, the fundraiser saw speak to the hole left in the hearts of those who loved her. They will carry that loss for life, even if a judge someday says the word guilty. In the end, this is not just a story about a crime. It is a story about love distorted into violence, about secrets that turned fatal, and about a young woman whose only mistake was trusting the wrong person. Kayla Hodgson should still be here. And until justice is truly served, her name will never fade.